Hi, my name is Jenna Winton, and I'm a cultural sustainability consultant and folklorist living in northeastern Pennsylvania. My work really centers on cultural sustainability assessment and impact assessment. And to do this work, I need indicators. So today I'd like to talk about developing indicators of cultural sustainability by combining theory and local knowledge. Today I'll be talking about the need for cultural sustainability indicators, the research approach I took, a description of the indicators, adapting indicators to unique community contexts. I'm going to give an example of using the indicators in fieldwork. And then I'd just like to talk about data uses and limitations and discussions. Here are a few terms that would be useful to know. Indicators are a trend or fact that indicates the state or level of something. Variables are an attribute of an object of study. So variables in this use inform us of the condition of each indicator. A theme is something of relevance to the research question that can be identified across a data set. In this research, I was looking for themes of sustainability particular to culture. Qualitative data is non-numerical data that describes qualities or characteristics. This can be collected through one-on-one interviews, site visits, participant observation. And the semi-quantitative data is an estimate of how much of a measured substance is present. And this is how the indicators can create tangible data out of qualitative data. Cultural sustainability. So many of you working in folklore have heard the term cultural sustainability and probably know what it means, but in case you haven't, cultural sustainability can be simply defined as sustaining a community's collective sense of identity in the face of change. And this can be in many different ways. So cultural sustainability goes beyond cultural preservation. Practices also include supporting cultures in adapting to change on their own terms and evolving through innovation of these traditional practices. Sustaining culture is important for communities, individuals, and it's important to community development, and holistic sustainability is becoming more and more apparent. A sustainable society depends on a sustainable culture. If a community's culture disintegrates, so will everything else. Exploring the larger research question of how something so subjective and intangible as culture can be assessed, monitored, and evaluated, my research was designed around these objectives: to define indicators by identifying universal themes of sustainability particular to culture, apply community knowledge to make these indicators appropriate for use in flexing and unique context. The research methods I used were thematic analysis of literature to define the indicators. I delved into not only cultural sustainability theory, but biology and community development. And I also researched qualitative and semi-quantitative methods for creating and measuring variables from ethnographic data. The need for cultural sustainability indicators. So indicators give us tangible data, and that's important because we can use it in the field to assess, monitor cultural sustainability, and also evaluate supportive projects. Tangible data also gives us the ability to create visuals for better understanding to stakeholders and presenting data to audiences. Trends in each indicator can be monitored over time to indicate the cultural sustainability of a region or group. Indicators provide us with an opportunity to support culture holistically, not just symptoms of cultural crisis. So, when I say symptoms of cultural crisis, I'm talking about initiatives that work on, um, focus on one traditional practice. These aren't really looking at the underlying roots, the underlying reasons why these cultural crises are happening. By using indicators, we can see the underlying reasons that are causing these cultural crises. Data can be used in tools that monitor and evaluate cultural sustainability projects. So hopefully tools can be created that are replicable and can be shared widely and used in the field. Indicators can inform other domains of sustainability for holistic sustainability projects. Here are the cultural sustainability indicators. They are the synthesis of themes of sustainability particular to culture. I'm going to talk about what they mean in a cultural context and why they qualify as indicators of cultural sustainability. Many of them are interrelated. It contributes to a holistic process that sustains culture. If all of these indicators have evident vitality within a cultural community, the culture is theoretically sustainable. Any risk to these indicators is a risk to cultural sustainability. The first indicator is access. In a cultural context, it means the opportunity for a community to learn about and engage with its local culture. UNESCO defines cultural rights by access. In this quote, cultural rights can be defined as the right of access to participation in and enjoyment of culture. Without the opportunity to access local and traditional culture, community members are denied a sense of self and of the collective, as well as the knowledge to participate in and pass on culture. So, access to tangible and intangible cultural heritage and culture could be this is museums, cultural centers, community spaces. Agency is a community's freedom to nurture culture without unwanted coercion from external control or influence. By maintaining agency, the cultural values inherent in the community guide its direction and development. So, community members can decide for themselves what and how their culture will evolve. And this is done through having their voices equitably heard in policymaking and in media that represents them. Here's a couple quotes. Projects that cultivate the capacity for and realization of self determined cultural representation and production. To sustain cultural and social distinctiveness, local knowledge must be incorporated into policies and their underlying implementation efforts. Engagement, a cultural community's active participation in cultural affairs. Engagement is an important function of the cultural evolution process. This includes engagement with your culture, but also with the community development process. The community, for instance, clarifying and pursuing what cultural sustainability means to them. As quoted here, participation is needed for innovating cultural heritage, and presentations are supported by a community that realizes the importance of cultural vitality. The next indicator is performance. In a cultural context, it is the collective cultural expression in daily life and community events. Cultural performance, be it events or informal daily actions and interactions and experiences. This is bringing culture into the tangible world. The cultural lens through which we see the world informs our experiences and expressions. So, by projecting these expressions and our interpretation of these experiences, we're feeding them back into community culture through performance, which can then be interpreted and experienced by other members of the community. Next is the indicator transmission. It is the process of passing on cultural practices and knowledge from one generation to the next. Its relevance to cultural sustainability is cultural practices that result in tangible or intangible forms of cultural heritage require transmission from one generation to the next. These practices can evolve into new mediums to adapt to changing times through innovation, but it is the continuous transmission and exposure to these practices and knowledge that sustains them and the culture they support. Adaptive resilience, the ability of a cultural community to adapt to changing conditions and influences in its environment while retaining its distinct cultural identity. So it's not to be considered as rigid or refusing to evolve, but adaptive resilience in this context implies the ability to adapt to the environment while maintaining rooted in identity. A couple of quotes. The capacity of a system to undergo change while still maintaining the same structure, functions, and feedbacks, therefore identity. The cultures that survive will be those that are willing and able to embrace the new on their own terms while rejecting anything that implies the total violation of their way of life. And the last indicator is cultural infrastructure. It's considered infrastructure that enables the delivery of cultural expressions and experiences to a community. So it's not only the local layout of a community and its public places, but it's also the people, technology, and cultural collections that facilitate opportunities to engage in culture. This can also be the local government and institutional policies. How are these indicators appropriate for being used in any cultural context? We can adapt them by using community-defined variables for observing the indicators in each unique environment. In creating indicators of sustainability, a social approach, Clark Miller emphasizes the need for good sustainability indicators to align with community values. By creating community-defined variables, the indicators can be adapted to the community's unique sense of these indicators. This was a pilot project of a cultural sustainability assessment in the region of Lincolnville. It's in St. Augustine, Florida. And these are the community defined variables that they wanted to use to observe access. So, one, the support of the Lincolnville Cultural Center and Museum. Two, public spaces promote African American heritage and civil rights movements. Three, generational residents do not feel pushed out. So, this is what they would need to see to feel like they had adequate access to their culture. Here is a semi-quantitative assessment tool used in the field. Here's how the variables were assessed with different conditions. So the highlighted ones were what community members thought was the current state of each variable. When the condition of each variable is added together, it gives us the condition of the indicator access. When the same process is done with each indicator, it can give us a cultural sustainability profile. Combining this data with the qualitative data that supports it, communities can figure out the best ways to increase the condition of the indicator. In this example, transmission is in need of the most support, so the community can create a strategy that strengthens transmission. And can also examine what may be putting transmission at risk. So a report including the qualitative data gives the indicators context and reveals potential resources. Then community-led recommendations and goal setting can begin. With the indicators, we can create an iterative process for evaluation. For instance, assessments can be carried out routinely, like once a year, once every couple of years, and the results compared from the previous cultural sustainability profile, revealing whether or not projects have been successful or not. And it can also tell us where adjustments should be made. It can be used for smaller projects, not just general overall assessments. The indicators can be used with examining a particular traditional art or practice. Qualitative data can be coded for the indicators and their variables for insights that inform projects involving cultural sustainability. Indicator data can be used in impact analysis, so analyzing how new projects and new developments could impact cultural sustainability. The indicators can provide context to initiatives of other domains of sustainability for increased impact of these projects and better allocation of resources. Finally, tangible data and visuals will hold decision makers accountable and make sure they consider cultural sustainability in their policies and developments. Are there any indicators that would work better or have been overlooked that you think should be included? How can cultural sustainability indicators contribute to the success and support of your work? Cultural sustainability is notably absent in the UN's SDGs. How can cultural sustainability indicators support the implementation and monitoring of the current SDGs, and how could they be used to convince the UN to add cultural sustainability as an SDG? Thank you for watching this presentation. Please reach out if you'd like to discuss any of this. I will put my LinkedIn profile below and we can connect on there.